welcome to this podcast from Rooster Punk. I'm your host, Gemma Huckle. Today I'm joined by Paul Cash, who is the co-founder of B2B storytelling agency Rooster Punk and author of the new book, Humanizing B2B. Together with Joy Abdullah, founder of the appropriately named Humanizing Business, a consultancy that's helping B2B businesses create emotional impact and influence using organic marketing. Hello, thank you so much for joining me today, guys.
Hey Gemma, hey Joy.
Pleasure to be here, Paul, Gemma.
Nice to see you. Nice to see a smiley face. Should we begin with a quick intro and start with Paul, just for our listeners who aren't familiar with you guys?
Yeah, so quick one. I'm Paul Cash. I'm founder of a storytelling agency specializing in the B2B sector called Rooster Punk. I'm a strategist, a father, an author, a creative entrepreneur, not necessarily in that order. And I'm on a personal mission to humanize B2B marketing.
And Joy, can you tell us a bit about your background?
Absolutely. Mission in life to give you a touch of joy. I hope I'll be successful by the end of this podcast. Come from an advertising and marketing background with about 32 years of corporate experience in various leadership roles, 19 years in ad agencies, 12 years in 8 industry verticals in various marketing roles across Southeast Asia. I'm an Asia specialist, or a Southeast Asia specialist to be frank. I've worked across industries and types of companies, which brought home one fact after those 3 decades, which is it's about the value people create for a business. And that's why 8 months ago, appropriately, I launched my own boutique consulting in B2B marketing, which is, as you mentioned, Gemma, it's called Humanizing Business. It's all about showcasing my purpose and interest for the clients, where I help businesses rediscover the value of their people. In short, it's finding the stories people have working on brands. It's finding the stories about how a brand helps a customer, what's the benefit to them and their community. And I do it through marketing. That's me, Joy Abdullah. Anything more, hit me up on LinkedIn.
I love that. Bring a touch of joy to the world. That's good.
That's the personal mission, Paul. That's the personal mission.
If only I could bring more cash to the world, that'd be good.
I'm ready to hook up with you the moment we bring more cash to the world. Let me know.
Exactly.
So before we start getting into the serious questions, I thought we could have some quick fire fun ones to get to know the real you.
Ooh, what have you got in store, Gem?
So maybe we'll start with, I'll do each question and then Joy can answer and then Paul straight after. So the first one was, what's your favourite book of all time?
So far, all time would be Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. That's by Adam Grant. Love that book. I just like the storytelling in the book. And next to that, I have to say it's Paul's book. The style of writing of Humanizing B2B is absolutely amazing. That's the word that comes to mind every time I've gone through various chapters in the book, Humanizing B2B. So that's book number 1. And book number 2 is Humanizing B2B, is because I think it touches close to heart. Both of us are on the same journey of showing the human side of B2B marketing. So those are my 2 favorite books at the moment.
Yeah, good answer, especially the first one, Joy. I like that. So mine, I guess from a business perspective, the book that really shaped my early career thinking was Crossing the Chasm by Geoffrey Moore. It was a book very specific to the technology sector, and it managed to, in a simple way, take away a lot of the complexity of how to grow an early stage technology business. And as a young advertising executive, it was a fascinating read for me and helped educate me and gave me the ability to converse with senior marketing leaders. And then from a personal point of view, I can't recommend highly enough a book called Can't Hurt Me by an ex-Navy SEAL called David Goggins. And it is an absolute page turner of the book. It was published about 18 months ago. And it's his true story about life as a young Black African man growing up in America and then ended up being the top of the food chain in Navy SEALs, and how it didn't work out for him. And he went on a bit of a journey of discovery. And if you get a chance to listen to the Audible version, there's a whole load more stuff in there. And it is just phenomenal.
That sounds really good. That's going on my
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, if you were to have your dream meal, what would it be? And when I say meal, that's a starter, a main, dessert, and a drink.
Oh, I'm getting hungry now.
Well, this is where my Indian roots are going to show up. So just for viewers who's listening, a little bit of diversity. I'm ethnically Indian, technically British. Now, so a dream meal, it's an Indian meal. It's a bread that's called lacha paratha with the butter chicken or murg makhani. And the best place I can tell you is Madam Chutney's. Just go there, take anything out of the starters, dessert, main meal, you'll get it. So my favorite is the lacha paratha with the murg makhani, which by the way is what we had for dinner yesterday, topped off with a fresh lime and soda. And for dessert, it's pistachio kulfi. Kulfi is a solid block of frozen ice cream, pistachio flavored. That's the best way I can describe it. That's my literally dream meal. I'm salivating as I'm explaining that meal right now.
So that sounds pretty tasty, Joy. I'm a big Indian food fan, but I'm going to go old school, Gemma. I'm going to put my non-veggie hat on in my days of now being a flexitarian as opposed to a vegetarian, and I'm going to go for a juicy prawn cocktail starter. For a Chateaubriand steak, medium rare, but it has to have béarnaise sauce with it. And then for dessert, I'm going to go for a really scrummy Eton mess, and that has to be washed down with a bottle of Napa Valley Screaming Eagle Cabernet Sauvignon. There you go. If I could afford a bottle, they're about £5 each.
All very logical choices. I would like to mix up the cuisines just to go fun.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yep.
And what are you playing on repeat right now?
What's on your Spotify playlist, Joy?
Oh, to be very honest, nothing specific. My playlist is actually really ancient. It's from about a couple of decades ago, and it's got hits from yesteryears. A lot of 80s music. I'm an 80s dude, so most of my hit songs are from that era, early 90s. And I've got a multiple language selection. I've got Hindi, Bollywood, various languages out of India, English, pop, rock, and country. So there's nothing specific. It just depends on the mood and when I'm listening to it.
That's cool. And so I've got this habit that every year in January, I start a new Spotify playlist. There is my 2021 version. But the one song I keep on seem to adding in is Afterglow by Ed Sheeran. I'm really into that at the moment. Don't know why. I kind of put it on before I go to bed at night. Anyway, probably a bit too much detail there.
And what movie either last made you cry or it left an impression on you?
Oh, Will Smith, Pursuit of Happiness, without a doubt. That's the entire story, the acting that Will Smith did, its depiction of courage, it actually left a profound impact on me. That movie, I probably watched that movie close to 6 or 7 times, but every time I see it, it just gets my heart. It's just an amazing story of a man's courage and self-belief. That's given me personally a lot of self-awareness, if I may say, about finding myself in terms of the journey I'm on right at the moment. So that's not just, it didn't make me cry. Crying comes a little difficult for some of us dudes, the older generation, so to speak, but impact, yes. So Pursuit of Happiness, hands down.
So I'm going to admit first and foremost that I am a crier. I do well up at a good emotional movie, especially when it's a true story that's being told well. I can't recall anything in recent times, but I did watch 2 amazing Amazon series the other day. So the new Jeremy Clarkson's Farm, which is just hilarious, but also very powerful. And then I watched something called The Mauritanian, which is, again, an Amazon movie about captives in Guantanamo Bay, and kind of a real insight into that whole, period of time. And that's quite a tour de force as well.
Nice. I feel like the cockles are warming up now with these questions. So last little warmer for you. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I can tell you, let me start with what I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be a fighter pilot or a fireman. Truth be told, I was dead set on being an actor. And I was in theater very heavily from my late teens all the way into my mid 30s. Unfortunately, I realized that at that era, about 40 years, 35 years ago, acting wouldn't have paid my bills. And I had to switch into getting into a corporate career. But deep in my heart, the desire to be an actor still stays. I still do dabble in theater, and hopefully, after all the pandemic stuff subsides, it's going to be possible to get back into it again.
Yeah, and I've never really grown up, or at least I like to think that I've not grown up. So when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional goalkeeper. You know, Everton would be my dream team to play for, but that was a bit of a pipe dream. But the reality is doing what I'm doing right now. You know, I've always had a massive passion and affinity with the creative industry, the advertising sector, marketing. So I feel pretty lucky that I'm doing something that I love.
Oh, that's nice. It's good to hear. So I guess we'll crack on with the more serious questions now. So serious work hats on. Joy, the reason we obviously invited you on the podcast was because you and Paul share the same passion for humanizing marketing. What skills do marketers need today to build a truly human brand?
Great question, Gemma. Great question. There's lots happening about the skills. I mean, if you just Google it up, you'll find the top 5, top 10 World Economic Forum skills, and the B schools have a different set of skills. But the first and foremost, I think, getting into the marketing profession, whether you're going into tech or consumers or B2B, whatever it is, the first thing I think marketers should really invest in is themselves. And what I mean by that is, get yourself a good coach and get yourself some self-awareness as to who you are, what are your values and beliefs, and understand how you think. Each one of us, and this is my personal opinion so that there's no aspersions on the podcast, 7 billion people on this planet are 7 billion unique personalities created with 7 billion plus types of beliefs and values, which have been conditioned into us depending our environment and where we are. So skill set wise, start with understanding who you are and how you think. Then move into getting some learning into what we call interpersonal skills. And interpersonal skills has one simple area called communication. And we all know, coming from the communication sector, that 20% of communication is actually the verbal or the visual communication, whereas the 80% unsaid communication is what really creates a perception of an individual. So, you automatically sum up a person the moment you see in the first 3 seconds. Get that skill, that communication skill. Understand that your ability to interact and engage with another person, that's a skill. You really need that. And what you need exactly in that is empathy. You really need to be able to understand where your coworker, your customer, client, or your business partner is coming from in their thinking. What's the database in their mind? What are they seeing when they're saying some words? What are the visuals they have in their head? To understand that, you need to have some, I won't go into emotional intelligence, but you need to have heightened sense of empathy. And that heightened sense of empathy comes when you're very aware of who you are and what matters to you. Number one. Number two, again, part under communication is, and this is in Paul's book, learn or associate with storytellers. Now, I'll be very frank up front. Whilst I write decently, I wouldn't be able to hold a candle in the style that Paul has written. I'm not a storyteller. I'm a very good presenter. I'm a very good narrator. But there are people who are able to create and dig out that human emotion in a story and present it. Learn how that happens. Bring yourself around that kind of people. Build your network so that when you're working in a marketing function, you can reach out and take that help. Storytelling is going to be, if not already it is, the absolute most differentiator in marketing today. It's nothing to do with a product, tech, or anything, but it's how well can the story connect with your customer. How well do you understand the customer and tell the story? Third, understand, and this is where empathy comes back, what's top of mind to the customer. And there are some couple of beautiful examples in Paul's books about buyers being influenced by how the brand has actually helped them in their own personal issue, the emotional issue of, I've left my keys and I can't let myself in, but I'm just making it very flippant, I know. But understand the customer's mind and serve what helps the customer, not what is the key message of your brand, not your facts and your logic, but what really makes the customer's job or role easier, because then you engage, you create recall, and that then helps you to stay on top of the list when it comes to getting a decision done. Lastly, find inspiration. And inspiration doesn't mean you go sit on a rock up on a mountain or something and meditate. You can find it wherever you want to find it, but you got to have an open mind to look at the small things of life. And it's even like just smiling at, somebody who's getting into the tube with you. Just it can just give you a thought. So find inspiration. Number 4, last, please read data from people who understand data. Don't read data with your bias. We all have an unconscious bias which we are often not aware of. And data does not lie, but it can mislead. So have the right people skilled in reading data tell you exactly what is that insight. And then take that and connect it to what is the customer, your employee, or your business partner trying to ask or seeking, which has not been articulated. Therein lies that convergence point of that insight, and what the emotional requirement is where the skill of creating the story comes in. So 5 skills, starting with, just to recap, all about self-awareness, leads to enhanced communication, goes into interpersonal skills, storytelling, understanding the customer's mind, inspiration, and complementing with data insights. So this is where the logics and facts really come in, but written in very simple layman's language. It's all detailed in Paul's book. That's all I can refer at the moment to. I'm using that, especially the golden triangle of language, like nobody's business in my work at the moment. Thank you, Paul, for putting it graphically. That was beautiful.
Yeah, it's a good diagram. I like that.
I guess while we're talking on the subject of the book, the book starts with a really stark warning to marketers about this giant meteor that's coming. Can you explain why B2B marketers need to wake up, Paul?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the book, obviously we want to create a bit of drama. So we talk about this giant meteor, and it's a fairly simple idea. So there's a new truth that I massively believe in B2B, and it's this: people today do not want to simply buy from companies anymore. They want to buy into them. Okay, and while that might just be a nuance of words, the impact of that is significant. And for most people, that shift is quite radical. It's moving a relationship from being transactional to being far more relationship and emotive. And for so long, B2B has been on this treadmill of speeds and feeds, product and performance marketing, and it's in danger of losing sight of what the real value is as a marketeer and what the bigger picture is in terms of what a business is actually trying to achieve. And for me, we're at a really pivotal moment that B2B marketeers have the opportunity to be the real growth engine of any company that they work for. And they need to move away from these tactical performance levers and start embracing what I call the master levers. And by that, I mean levers that can be pulled and configured that help amplify all those other kind of performance levers like email and PPC and social media and kind of, all the tactics beloved of marketeers. And those master levers are brand, it's around purpose, it's around emotion, and it's around storytelling. And it's the uncomfortable stuff, the stuff that's really hard to measure, but it's the stuff that we as human beings all know deep down is the stuff that can make a killer difference. And so the meteor is this kind of old world, very binary thinking, and all the kind of the tired playbooks that everybody seems to be using around trying to eke out better lead generation opportunities for a business. And to me, B2B needs to head in a new direction. And that's something we call the humanizing of B2B. And it requires this mindset shift. And for those curious and brave enough to be able to experiment and build more human brands, I think the world is their oyster. So that's it. Marketing needs to be the growth engine. not just the lead generation team, and really step up to the plate.
Yeah, and it even comes down to the more granular stuff like language, which is quite a big section in the same chapter. And as Joy was referencing the golden triangle graphic that you created, it helps B2B marketers speak to customers like human beings. Can you just tell us a bit more about that framework?
Yeah, so Simon Sinek obviously became a rock star marketing guru off the back of his golden circle diagram back in 2008. And obviously that left a massive impression on millions of marketeers, including me. And so I needed a golden something when I did my book. So I've obviously got the golden triangle. And I guess, not just about trying to make a dent in the universe and a dent in people's minds, but the idea that the triangle is used as a bit of a familiarity icon towards like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So he uses the triangle and represents the bottom of the triangle as being kind of the basic needs that people have: food, shelter, etc. And as you move up the triangle, you get to this kind of this higher status, this self-actualization. And so in my golden triangle, at the base is what I call the language of product. And so, this is the basic fundamental language that we all need to learn when we work for a company. It's what a product does, it's the technical specs, it's the speeds and feeds, etc. We need to be able to converse with engineers and scientists and whoever else in that business around the language of product. And for the most part, the legacy of B2B has been, well, that's the only language we need to talk to our customers into. Yeah, and we've kind of, we've all seen that traditional B2B product language narrative that, yes, was massively part of the old landscape, but it's still part of the modern landscape as well. And partly the reason why B2B inherited this label B2Boring, but fundamentally it's about knowing what you're selling, okay? But luckily over the last kind of 5 to 10 years, marketing in B2B has evolved, and we've started to use another language. So this represents the middle tier of the triangle, and this is the language of the customer. Okay, and this is about empathy and understanding and insights and recognizing a conscious need and recognizing an unconscious need that a customer has. And we've got really good at this in B2B. We've got really good at diving into that kind of really nice empathetic layer of getting under the skin of our buyers and our prospects. And account-based marketing has been a major tool in being able to do that on an individual level as well as an account level. And that shift towards personalization has been partly due to that. But in a nutshell, that middle tier, the customer language, is about knowing who you're selling to. Okay. But there's also a third and final language, which we need to master, in my opinion. And this is the language that can have a transformational impact. And it's represented at the top tier of the triangle. And it's the language of emotion. And to me, this is the language or the art of storytelling. Yeah, and it's about tapping into people's feelings and fears and hopes and aspirations. It's about making people feel good about themselves and good about the brand choices that they make along the way. And in a nutshell, this is knowing how to sell. Yeah, and all of this supports the notion that even the most complicated businesses with the most rational, decision makers, whether it's a chief information officer or a fleet procurement manager, they all buy an emotion and they justify with fact. And that is effectively what the golden triangle tries to summarize.
Wow, it's a lot to take in. Joy, you've also been kind of scurrying away on your own kind of principles to help marketers simplify their approaches. I think you call it the ABCDE of marketing. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. As Paul mentioned, back in 2008, Simon had the golden circle. Paul's now got his golden triangle. I haven't managed to do a golden triangle, but I do have a triangle. The simplified version of the triangle is always be captivating, demonstrating, engaging. ABCDE. It's a simple tip that helps me to get my clients and their marketing teams and their lead generation teams on the same playing field, so to speak. When we're in a discussion, it helps to bring everybody onto the same point, to start focusing on why is it so important to be captivating and demonstrating and engaging. in the marketing that goes out. And this is where my triangle comes in. So my base pyramid right at the base has something which is known as meaning. It covers purpose and values. And it's a little bit more than just let's make this dollar sale or let's achieve this kind of a turnover. It's why is this business and its brand in existence, and how does it help the buyers, the clients, and its related society? What's the value that is being delivered by the brand across those customer segments? And the value changes. Each objective changes. And this is where, when you look at the purpose and you look at the value, you take the meaning, you can find out how to be captivating. And you, to take Paul, as he said, the top of the tier is the language of emotions. So you need to bring in to connect in order to be captivating. The mid tier for me is makeup. It's literally like cosmetic makeup that you use, from foundation to eyeshadow. This is part of the brand house in creating the identity. What do we need to stand for? What is our key message? What should we be talking about? And who is the ideal customer profile that we should have? Who should we bring? Who do we align with in terms of values? It's not that I have a SaaS service and I want to sell to people who need it, but who's my ideal client profile which aligns with me in terms of my values, so that we can partner for the better good of the society. So that's the makeup. And when you have meaning and makeup work together, you arrive at what's the message I want to give out. And this is really the storytelling piece in short. It's all about connecting emotionally, depending on the customer segments that you have. So you may have 8, 9 influencers and decision makers in a key account. Each one of them is an individual. What do we connect them on? Somebody gets a Facebook message, somebody gets an email. Everybody does not get the same customized. Yes, this is where it becomes very granular. It becomes where you need your HubSpots and your CRMs to really work well. You need a good back-end team. But with the work that I do, I've seen when the client invests and puts in that hard yards, the returns are exponential. I mean, over 6 months or 8 months of time, the recall is higher, the resale values are higher, the referral leads come in better. So ABCDE is just the tip, the dressing to be engaging from humanizing business perspective. It's all about captivating, demonstrating, and engaging how the brand gives you value and why you should be engaging with this brand. That's ABCDE. That's it.
Nice, like that.
Very memorable. And Paul, you were just saying in your previous answer that most marketers have kind of ended up paralyzed by their decisions, and they're quite fearful to be bold. How did B2B marketers kind of end up in this place? Yeah,
so it's my observation, I guess, of 30 years of working at the coalface of B2B marketing, and it's that the vast majority of buyers and decision makers live in this permanent state of fear, and fear is an acronym in this respect, and the F stands for frustration. So many of them are frustrated in their roles. They're frustrated by lack of resources, lack of budget, lack of talent, lack of time, all that usual stuff that we have to deal with. They tend to be smarter than everybody else that the supplier surveillance techniques, they are evasive at best. They use ad blocking technology. They don't answer their phones. They've learned the art of being able to hide when buyers, when their suppliers are trying to get hold of them. They tend to be very apathetic, and that is a condition that's been created over many decades where suppliers and vendors have just bored them to death most of the time. So they're just kind of apathetic to most proposals. And like we all know with B2B, they tend to be risk averse in the mainstream. And as marketeers, we spend a lot of time actually making this condition worse by doing same old, boring, fact-based, pretty dull, tired, cookie cutter sales engagement strategies and so forth. And all of this just makes buyers want to run away and hide. Do you know what I mean? No wonder they want to self-serve. No wonder we've got to this model where they don't want to engage with salespeople till they're 70% of the way down the process, because we've made the process a fucking nightmare. And that is the truth of it from my point of view. And there is an antidote to this fear bit. And again, I call it BRAVE, and it's another acronym. So The B is for buyer emotion. So how do you dial up this within your brand and marketing activities? R is for recognition. So this is, start by asking what it is you can do for a buyer rather than what they can do for you. I think that's a really important human quality. A is for appreciation. And by that, I mean, try and understand what's actually happening in their world, within their business or account. Do your research and your homework. So when you make some kind of communication to them, it's intelligent, it's sensitive, and it has empathy. You'll get a long way with that kind of approach as opposed to just a generic approach. V is for value. So again, be absolutely laser focused about what it is you bring to the table and the impact you can have on their business, but also on them personally from a career point of view. And then finally, just like Joy had his A, B, C, D, E, the E is for engagement. And so again, this is your chance to be creative, to be interesting and relevant, cut through the noise, and make sure that you're positioned as the kind of the go-to company to speak with. So that's the whole kind of fear and brave methodology.
I'm glad that there is an antidote.
You, yes, exactly.
Yep.
So just last question really is, do you have any simple advice for anybody listening who is trying to really elevate their career within B2B marketing? So real practical tips that they can kind of take away and implement tomorrow. I'll start with you, Joy.
Yeah, sure. It's with self. My tip is very simple. I'll always look at the self because my part of the work is humanizing the business. And if you looked at my tagline, people matter. That's what I say. The person, you as a marketeer, you're trying to move up a couple of notches in your career. Understand that your X factor is within you. You've got to understand yourself, and you've got to understand what you stand for, what is right. Engaging involves creativity. Creativity involves critical thinking and being open to inspiration. That can only happen when you open your mind. And you can open your mind when you understand the way you think. So self-awareness, understand that. It helps you. You'll discover your X factor. And my X factor and Paul's X factor is totally different. I don't use Axe as a deodorant, but we still have our X factors, right? Get that. And when you keep that, when you find it, when you discover it, take help. Make that into your own personal brand. You are a brand. As a CMO, be that personal brand and work internally. So if you've got to talk numbers to your C-suite. Get rid of the fear of the numbers falling, but show them what happens if they keep talking logic and facts, because there's going to be a trajectory where you'll be able to show the curve at a certain point in time dipping away. Instead, if you show that you invest today, the curve is going to be a very slow bell curve, but you will get that growth and you'll see it bumping up like a product life cycle curve over and over when the referrals come in. So simple tip, find yourself, know yourself, don't ape, i.e. don't copy. As Paul said, we marketeers have run ourselves to the ground because we've become lazy. We've gone into lazy thinking. We need to move and find ourselves and drive ourselves and our teams creatively with the right feeling from the heart. When we bring it from ourselves, the message, the teams get galvanized. When teams get galvanized, that force just ripples out. When it ripples out, customers feel it. And you can imagine it's a stone in a pond. You see the ripples just rippling out. That's my one piece of advice. Find yourself, understand yourself, act on what matters to you. Take it to your C-suite, talk the language, again, communication, that they understand with your message. Transfer the visual you have in their way to their brain. That's it.
I love that. X factor is within you. I'm going to take that away today.
Don't sing though, Gem. We don't need any of that.
How about you, Paul?
Yeah, I guess so. I echo what Joy said. I guess my simple tip for anybody who wants a fulfilling and meaningful career in B2B, and again, there is a bias I bring to this, is first and foremost, become an expert in people and then support that with some kind of domain or subject knowledge rather than the other way around. I think it's really important to be curious about everybody around you, be curious about salespeople, be curious about customers, be curious about yourself, want to understand what goes on between your brain, have a passion for human psychology, for behavior science, for neuroscience, and try to spend as much time listening and talking to customers and sales reps, and walk in their shoes as much as you walk in your own. Do you mean you'll find it's a goldmine of insight and information? And if you're a creative marketeer, you'll have loads of opportunities to do something with that.
Curiosity and engagement. I like it. Okay, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you'd love to hear more from Joy, you can find him by searching Joy Abdullah on YouTube. And Paul's book, Humanizing B2B, which was written with James Chisona, I must add, is out now and available on Amazon, Amazon Kindle, and Apple Books. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Gemma. Thanks, Joy.